Hi, I'm Glenn Murray. I'm an SEO copywriter. I own and run Divine Right Copywriting, which is an SEO copywriting studio. I've been a freelance copywriter for 8 years, and before that I was a technical writer in the software industry for 9 years. I write everything that goes out the door at Divine Right, so really it's just me. Divine Right is my company name, but I'm really just a freelance copywriter. The reason I'm recording this blog post is because I get a lot of emails from aspiring freelance copywriters asking for tips on how to become a successful freelance copywriter. And I love, don't get me wrong, I love getting those emails and I love helping out. And I always do help out with quite detailed responses, but I find myself being asked the same questions and answering those questions with the same answers every time. So I thought I'd record a video blog post to house all my answers, and hopefully it can be more helpful than each of my individual responses are. My top 10 tips, that's what I'm going to go through today. My top 10 tips for becoming a successful freelance copywriter. Start at number 1 with cold calling. When I started out my first year of copywriting, I made 1,000 cold calls. And I mean cold calls on the phone. I didn't go door to door because the geography is too vast. So I made 1,000 cold calls, not to 1,000 different companies, but a few were callbacks and that sort of thing. And it's hard work, and you've got to be prepared to take a few knockbacks, and a few people will be rude to you, but that's the name of the game. It did result in a few clients, and quite a few clients, and some of those clients I still have to this day. So number 1 tip is to cold call. Number 2 tip is to write stuff for free. And I don't mean for other copywriters or really for agencies, because agencies will take you for a ride if they can. I mean for direct clients, because they're the ones who will value that free copy the most. A good example, when I started out, I went through the local newspaper, looked at the property section, and saw a house for sale and thought that copy sucks. So I rewrote it and contacted the real estate agent and said, look, I've rewritten this copy, you're welcome to it if you want. If you like it, give me $100. If you don't, I'm happy to go away. They did like it, they did pay me, they called me in, we had a chat, and then for nearly a year I wrote all of their property descriptions for their more upmarket houses for $100 a pop. In the end it just wasn't sustainable for me because it was 4 or 5 hours worth of work, and including a site visit and talking to the owner and then writing up the copy and going through multiple versions of it. So I ended up giving that away, but it did get me my first client, and it did give me a lot of experience and some good work for my portfolio. Another example, if you don't want to write property descriptions, because they are I believe they're pretty low value for the actual real estate agent, you could go through your local paper and look for a real estate bio. So some real estate agents will include a full page ad of a bio of them, an ad for them, and if you find one of those and it looks poorly written, then rewrite it and take it into them and see what they think. Tip number 3, don't focus on qualifications. And this is one of the most common questions I get. What qualifications, what courses would you recommend? Well, I don't recommend any, because I've never done any. I don't have any formal writing qualifications. I have a Bachelor of Arts in English Literature and Linguistics, and I have a Master of Arts in International Communication, but I don't have any formal writing qualifications. I've always just been a writer. Even as a kid I was a writer, and that's just what I do. When I was looking at outsourcing work and employing people, when people sent me their resume, I rarely looked at it. I didn't care what qualifications they had. What I was only interested in was the quality of their work. I would ask to see samples, and I would ask to know their rate. So I would assess their abilities by actually looking at their work, and I think that's the most important thing. It may be, qualifications may be more important to non-writers. So if you're approaching clients directly, it may be more important, but most creative agencies and all copywriting agencies will be able to assess the quality of your writing by simply looking at it, and qualifications will make no difference to their opinion of you. So I wouldn't bother. I mean, that's not to say those qualifications are unimportant, but they're certainly, and they can help, and I'm sure they will help. But if you don't have them, I would start at other places. I wouldn't say that's your starting point for getting into a freelance career as a copywriter. Tip number 4, SEO. Search engine optimization is where it's at. You have to have a website, obviously, and I'm taking that for granted. If you've got a website, it has to rank. Then you can stop spending money or time on attracting clients. As I said, in my first year, I cold called 1,000 clients. Then I figured out how to rank my website. After since ranking well for all of my key phrases, I've not spent a single cent on promotion in the last 7 years because my clients all come to me through my search engine presence. So spend every spare moment you can on search engine optimization, and you're in a good position. As a writer, you have the ability to write lots of content, and content is half the battle in the search engine war. So focus on SEO, so spend every spare moment. Next tip, what are we up to? Tip number 5. While you're spending every spare moment on SEO, spend every spare dollar on web design. Again, you've got to have a web design, you've got to have a website, and if you're going to have a website, you've got to make it good. Your website reflects the quality of your service, and it reflects your professionalism, and it reflects your value. And if you have a poor website, people will think that your service is poor and your value is negligible. So make sure it's really good. Get a good web designer to do your work, and don't cheap out. In the end, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Tip number 6: back up your work. You don't need a fancy computer, but you do need a good internet connection. But whatever you've got, back up your work, because there'll come a time when your computer will crash, guaranteed. My computer's crashed a number of times, and I've been saved by backups numerous times. And I would recommend that you back up your backups. I back up locally to a USB hard drive, and I use a product called, what's it called? I can't remember the name of it at the moment. Shadow Protect. That's what it's called, Shadow Protect. It's a very good backup solution. I've tried numerous backup solutions, including Microsoft supplied ones, and Shadow Protect is undoubtedly the best. It's quick to back up and quick to restore, and it all happens automatically. So every day, 8 times a day, my computer is backed up. For any changes that have occurred are automatically backed up. Actually, these days I just do it too. I've got a second drive in my computer, and I back up from my D drive to my E drive. Periodically, I'll back up that backup to an external drive, and I'll also back up, that's all data, so business data. I'll also back up periodically my system partition, which is actually my installed version of Windows and all my applications. You can't back that up just by copying it. You have to do a system backup. And again, I use Shadow Protect for that, and I back that up to a USB drive, and I store that off-site. Now, back to the data. I have a secondary backup of all my data in an online location. So I use Carbonite. It's carbonite.com. I think in Australia now there's carbonite.com.au. It's the same service, it's just the Australian version. The US version, which is the one I originally set up on, is $50 per year for unlimited space. It automatically backs up all your data. So whenever you make a change to a file, it sits there and it waits for you to be inactive. After making that change, it identifies the change and then waits for you to be inactive, and it will then back that file up, copy it across to Carbonite so that the latest version is on Carbonite. And if you lose your computer, you can always download all that data from Carbonite directly, and it will save you